Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Matthias and Jonathan, for all of your support throughout the entire, well, frankly, the entire UNGUS preparation and bringing us together to talk a little bit about procurement transparency. So I want to talk today a little bit about buying better to build back better. And I think the declaration is obviously the focus at the moment for all of us, because that's what's the big event this week that we're publishing. And as Helen has mentioned, obviously it is an improvement on the previous convention, but it still falls short of most of our hopes and dreams, I think is fair to say. But I want to strike a little bit more of a positive tone in terms of looking at what it creates a foundation for us to springboard onto next. And at OCP, we're working in over 30 countries using open government and open data to transform public contracting. And I want to challenge us to think a bit bolder and a bit differently about public contracts today, as one of the most important things we could all take away from my 5-minute lightning talk. And I want to put something out there and say that procurement, I mean, I'm new to procurement. I come from a sort of digital rights, digital public good, open web background. And I brought my open data background to procurement last year when I joined OCP. And something I've learned is that procurement isn't really about contracts. And we kind of sell ourselves short on the power of procurement when we think about red tape, bribe, and the main risks being bribery, price fixing, and we really zero in on the bureaucracy of this boring drudgery. Procurement's really about money, and it's about a lot of money. Before the pandemic even hit, we're talking about $13 trillion market a year. It's the largest market in the world. It's hugely powerful economically. And that money the decisions are made about that money, how it's invested, which neighborhoods get more infrastructure, which school programs get taken forward, which parts of society get that money, and that's taxpayer money. So no matter what form of government you have, your citizens are having a social contract with your government that says, we'll pay our taxes and we expect something in return. And that's why procurement is so powerful, because it's not just about pieces of paper or forms or processes. It's really about that social contract and making sure that beyond fighting corruption alone, that we have better outcomes, social and economic outcomes, as it were, across the board. And here's just a couple of things that procurement has had the power to do that we've seen from our experience. And I wanted to kind of draw a parallel between all of the other SDGs and just say, we think a lot about SDG 16 as anti-corruption activists, but actually strengthening good governance through the power of procurement, using it as a policy tool to encourage more sustainable, equitable, fair, and open societies, can do everything from help us reach the SDGs on health, education, infrastructure, climate change, and any number of things. So bringing that to the UNGUS and to the declaration today, we encouraged member states to do 5 things, which I won't read out to you. You can have a quick look. None of them should be surprising for those of you who are on this call who've been having conversations with me and with others about procurement transparency. And in the end, where the political declaration delivered for us was acknowledging that we needed procurement transparency through the whole cycle of procurement. And that goes to my point about this not just being about contracts. It's not enough to just have access to the contract documents. We really need to have transparency on the planning, who's deciding what spend is going to happen and how we're going to engage with the private sector, all the way through to implementing those contracts. It's all well and good to publish a contract for a bridge you're building, but did it get built? Is it built to the quality that was promised? The second thing that we liked about it is that there was finally a commitment to strengthen data collection systems. A big problem we've seen in the past is that, sorry, somebody's getting excited with a motorcycle outside. Is that we didn't have good data on contracts. And of course, on top of this, there's a lot of excitement about AI and machine learning and other technologies. But if you have garbage data going into your system, you get garbage insight out. So that's really critical. Also, the fact, as Helen's already mentioned, it is mentioned at least twice in there. It's better than none. The right to access the data and the information. So we'll take it, even if it's not as prominent as we would have hoped. And finally, embracing digital tools, open data, and web portals, which for us was something that was really outdated in the previous convention and just needed. We're grateful that it's in there so that we can take advantage of these advances in technology to fight corruption and build better societies. Where the declaration falls short, on the other hand, is that firstly, it's very focused on transparency, which is great. Like what's in there is about transparency, but there isn't enough about accountability. It's great to publish contracts, but if we don't have a commitment to civil society monitoring and media being able to watchdog what's going on, if we're not, and in the second point, the failure to kind of acknowledge the multi-stakeholder consultation process around procurement decisions. Transparency, basically, I mean, and we see this in a lot of countries where we work, it just tells you what corruption is happening, it doesn't fix it. So we need to be a little bit stronger on that. A third point was just the absence of mentioning the role of the industry and market. I mean, $13 trillion pre-pandemic, which has certainly gone up since all of the recovery spending and fighting the global pandemic. I mean, how can we not involve business as such a big, important partner in this? So I think that there really needed to be a little bit more of a nod to that in the relationship between government and business and their role in making sure government gets PPE that's up to standard, for example. I mean, we've seen so many terrible COVID contracts around the world where a little bit more consultation with healthcare experts or businesses themselves might have avoided some of the problems we had. And then fourthly, just challenging us to think a little bit more about the role of procurement, not just how do we fight corruption in procurement, but how do we make sure it's a strong tool, all of this money that we're allocating to different policy prerogatives, making sure that it helps us build open, sustainable, equitable societies and rebuild citizen trust and repair that relationship between government and the governed. So where will we go from here? We're very grateful to be talking to the UNODC a little bit already about updating Article 9 procurement guidance. That's something very practical we can do to bring it into the 21st century. And we hope many of you on this call will work with us on that. We'd love to hear everyone's ideas and thoughts. Secondly, encouraging member states individually, as Helen's as mentioned already, on a national level, to do some of the things that are missing and to really engage with civil society, businesses, and media in the planning and the implementation of procurement. And finally, just getting everybody to think a bit bolder and a bit bigger about this, going beyond transparency and anti-corruption and really seeing how all of this powerful money that's flowing around the world right now, trying to rebuild after the pandemic, can be such a powerful tool to have the future we really want and deliver on all 17 SDGs. So no pressure, setting the bar high here. But I think, you know, out of crisis can come opportunity, and that's what I'm hoping that we will aim for. Thank you very much.